Good morning, everyone. Today we're checking out a brand new video from Popcorn Studios, Starseed Psyche, episode 17, Battle with the Kingserax. If you don't know what that is, it's one of the Qsauruses, but big. It's a king. Let's hop in and see how they can take it down. Oh, whoa, I just realized this is a One Piece. Ooh, okay.
Previously on Starseed Psyche, Kaio Adachi and the Subarwraith soldiers began their invasion of the underground Kingserax base. The Slayer Squadron led the invasion and has remained on the front line, moving farther down into the tunnels and caves than the other squads.
That's
right. In
the
midst of this battle, Kaio's Q-Cidian ally, Phaestriel, is cloaked and using the invasion as a distraction to look around and find evidence of who is behind the Kingserax. Now knowing that there is a chance an inventor from her race, who lived around 5,000 years ago, named Innovrian, may have somehow laid the groundwork.
Are they technically immortal? Because if the guy is from 5,000 years ago, he would either be old as hell or not himself.
For these mechanical creatures
Guess we'll
existing
find out
and
eventually.
being used for war in the modern day. Albeit Kaio and his allies still have suspicion that the Japanese chief of staff Shijika Buru, and a group he allegedly works with called the Global Commission, may somehow be the ones controlling the Kingserax. During this battle so far, Kaio has managed to unlock one of his past life abilities from when he was a Q-Cidian. He has been able to successfully use telekinesis, though has to be careful using it, as every Subarwraith soldier has been outfitted
telekinesis
with a mic and camera for this mission, so footage can be shown to the world of them defeating a Kingserax base. Kaio's own camera is broken, as is General Yamada-Ritsu's, who he is working with, and those who have pressed on farther than the rest of the Slayer squad down into the caves. Toshiko and Chip joined up with them as well just before they made it to the lowest cavern yet, where a monstrous Kingserax was waiting, one that they're calling the Kingserax. Let's see if they can handle a monster of this scale in the next chapter of Starseed Psyche. The Kingserax had Final Boss written all over it. It honestly got me thinking that finishing it off would mean the end of the Kingserax. I should have known that wasn't true, but going into that fight with that sort of energy made me fight that much harder, which was definitely needed because this thing was not going down easy. From the tunnel opening where we all stared down at this four-armed monstrosity, Ritsu yelled, "Spread its attention and gauge its abilities before we commence our assault." For a second I worried Toshiko might ignore her mother's orders out of spite. I should have known she was mature enough to not let her frustration with Ritsu's attitude lately keep her from doing her job well. We all leapt off in different directions. I sprang towards the nearest wall, which had enough jutting stones and ledges for me to easily run along it, as I got my bearings in this new cave. I had to block some oncoming fire from a few drones on platforms around the Kingserax. I also spotted a few butchers, but for the most part, the only significant threat was the big beast front and center. The Kingserax had to be at least 40 feet tall, and was built sort of like a Qsaurus, but while those things had no arms, this thing had 4 of them. 2 of the arms had larger versions of the classic drone's guns, and the other 2 had blades like the butchers coming out of them, but longer and curved. It also had a hammer,
like a scythe blade,
like club at the end of its tail that looked familiar to what the Thumper had hit me with plenty of times. I spoke into my comms. "Watch out for its tail, it looks like similar tech to the Kingserax Hekima and I fought in the last cave. It'll likely
I guess it would actually make sense for why they were calling this thing a king. It's got the classic blaster from the drones, it's got the blade from the butchers, and it's got the hammer from the thumper.
Cause a shockwave after impacting with the surface. "I reckon I'll go ahead and chop that off first then," Chip replied before bounding off one of the cave walls. He landed on the platform closest to the Kingserax. There was a drone there waiting to fire at him, but Chip smashed the flat face of his blades into it, smacking the creature off the ledge, before hurling his blades down towards the big bad's tail. There were other drones on that platform ready to fire on him as well, but Toshiko landed behind Chip and started carving through them, diverting their attention. Before Chip's blades even got close, the Kingserax stomped forward and turned its head towards Chip. It swiped one of its blades up at him with surprising speed. Chip and Toshiko both managed to leap out of the way, as the platform they were on was slashed in half. The Kingserax even carved through 2 of its own drones that had been standing there. Before either Chip or Toshiko landed, the creature aimed a gun at each of them and fired bolts 5 times the size of the average drone's projectiles. Toshiko had her blade attached to her arm and blocked the fire, but it still hit hard enough to send her tumbling off course and crashing into the cave wall. Chip's blades weren't on him, so he just raised his gauntlet to cover his face. Thankfully, out of nowhere, General Ritsu sprang down from the ceiling, snatched Chip by the leg, and pulled him to the ground, out of the line of fire. I considered springing up to help Toshiko, but she recovered almost instantly, running along the wall and hurling her blade fragments down towards the creature's wrists. I wanted in on the fight, but I also wanted to finish scoping out the cave. The room was easily the biggest we'd seen, and about 200 feet back, there was a sharp drop-off with some light coming up from below. I kept running along the wall, hoping...
That could be where the drones are coming from, but right now, you definitely need to focus on taking out the king. Chip wants to take out the Hamotel, you need to take out one of the Blastals.
To see what was down there. Before I could get close enough, Toshiko warned through my comms. "Kaio, it's targeting you." I looked back and saw that the creature had whipped around and had a ball of light building up in its mouth. I saw the flash ignite and dove as forcefully as I could towards the ground. The spot where I'd just been exploded from the eruption of the creature's beam. I kept moving closer towards the ledge I was trying to look over. That just made the creature even more focused on me.
Exactly.
Seeing it from below and stampeding after me made it that much more intimidating. It was totally ignoring the others now and had both guns firing at me. Knowing how hard those bolts hit, I let my blades hover
That tells me exactly what's down though. The real base.
fair ways behind me to block, but with each shot that hit them, they were nearly knocked out of the air. I figured if it was coming at me anyways, I might as well just keep going for my target. I sprinted closer and closer towards the edge and heard the thumping of metal hooves speeding up even more behind me. I heard the beam charging up in its mouth again and looked back to make sure I could dodge in time. Thankfully, it was so fixated on me that Ritsu managed to leap right at the creature's head and tackle it off aim. It didn't even fire and instead snapped its jaws at her. It didn't get a bite in, but did knock her back, just for Toshiko to catch her and pull her down to the nearest platform. Before they even landed, Chip, with his blades back on his arm, tackled the creature's foot just as it was about to take a step. That knocked it awkwardly off balance and it stumbled forward, instantly swiping a blade at Chip as it did. He blocked it with his own blade, but was still thrown backwards by the force. All that had been enough of a distraction for me to reach the ledge. I called back my blades, dove, and slid along the ground, letting myself just fall over the cliffside, out of the Kingserax's line of fire. I stuck one of my blades into the wall to stop my fall, and stared down at 4 huge ships, bigger than any bombers the Kingserax had attacked with before. There were also drones and other Kingserax racing to get inside them. They seemed like they were about ready to move out. "Incoming, friendo!" Chip yelled. I didn't even wait to see what was coming before I bounded off the wall. The Kingserax's...
Ships those big, bigger than bombers, must be more like just transport ships. Meaning they're being loaded with troops and stuff to be sent out across the world.
Tail swung over the ledge and smashed the wall right where I'd been. As I'd anticipated, a pulse burst off it like the thumper's fist, but I was far enough away to not be hit. I dug one blade into another wall to stop myself, then ran back along that wall towards our main target. "Captain Hakama," I said through the comms as I hurled one of my blades towards Toshiko, who I knew could use the extra blade as she was just about to come down on the creature's tail. "We've got a massive 4-armed Kingserax down here with both short and long-ranged weaponry. There are also 4 ships down here with enemy forces piling into them. The big Kingserax also seems to be doing all it can to keep us away from the ships."
Oh yeah.
From the higher cave, Hakama said, "Acknowledged. The rest of the Slayer Squadron and I will get down to you as soon as possible. Take out the big one, then do as much damage to those ships as you can."
Do what you can.
I said back, "Acknowledged." I was so focused on the Kingserax that I almost didn't notice a Kingserax butcher leaping up from a platform below me and taking a swipe at me with its broad blade. I flipped off the wall over it and landed down on the platform it had jumped from. It landed in front of me. This thing looked cute in comparison to the Kingserax, but I knew better than to underestimate it. I only had one blade as Toshiko was using my other. I looked over to see Ritsu darting and weaving in front of the Kingserax, drawing its fire, while Toshiko and Chip were working together to carve through its tail. They were all looking well away from me, so I figured I could go a little more all out on this butcher with my new ability. The Kingserax was the...
Dude, all you have is telekinesis, and that is powerful, but you're just learning how to use it.
...priority, but I didn't want this thing sneaking up on any of my allies, like it almost had just now with me. The butcher arced its blade over its head and swiped down towards me. I activated my telekinesis and flicked my wrist like I was backhanding it. The blade immediately moved off course and hit the ground next to me. I punched the butcher in the face with my gauntlet, adding some telekinetic impact, and it flew back, leaving its blade stuck in the platform. It landed on its feet, still stumbling back, as I telekinetically lifted its own blade into the air and hurled it right back at the butcher. It stabbed right into the butcher's shoulder. Then, with another telekinetic thrust, I drove it right through the creature, chopping its arm off.
Oh,
I then sprang
yes.
forward with my own blade swinging and sliced halfway through its waist. I then focused my telekinesis and felt it cling to the top and bottom of the butcher's body. I thrust one of my arms up and the other one down, and ripped the top of its body off the rest of the way,
That's how
holding
you
its
do
torso
it.
hovering in the air before hurling it to the side and smashing it into the wall. I had to stifle an excited laugh. That is, until I heard the thump of the Kingserax's tail and saw Chip getting smacked across the cave like a bullet.
Ooh.
I sprang after him, but couldn't move nearly as fast as he'd been hit. He smacked
God.
the wall hard and fell onto one of the platforms, with some of the drones immediately taking aim on him.
Gotta get back to the
Thankfully,
fight.
I got there before they shot at him and spun my blade through all the drones, before kneeling down to check on him. "You okay?" He got up pretty quickly, but then gave me a confused and concerned look.
Okay, just a quick question. Why would whoever's making these robots give them a tongue? It's a robot. It would have no use for a tongue.
"Yeah, friendo, He glanced briefly down at the camera and mic on his chest and said, "Thought I saw something weird is all. Gotta be real careful what we do down here, right?" I pretty quickly understood and felt like an idiot. Chip would have been shocked enough as it was seeing me use telekinesis, but on
right.
top of that, if he'd seen it, that meant his camera likely did too.
Oh boy.
I just had to hope, with all the different camera feeds getting pumped back to the compound, that wouldn't get noticed.
Yeah,
I nodded,
hopefully.
then was surprised as Chip
Otherwise, you done goofed.
shoved me backwards. A beam suddenly exploded between us, just missing us both. I stumbled back enough to be near the ledge of the platform and backflipped off it, seeing that Toshiko was sliding to a stop just beneath me, with her blades and one of mine hovering around her. She looked up at me. "Want to help me take its tail the rest of the way off?"
Yes, yes.
I nodded and she leapt up towards me. She flipped over so her feet were aimed up. I angled mine down towards her. Our feet met, we both crouched, then sprang off each other. She launched me forward and towards the ceiling,
I have always liked that move. It's difficult to pull off, but damn is it a good move.
letting all our blades follow along behind me. I flipped over again, sprang off the ceiling, and down to one of the platforms, on the way to the creature. I swiped our blades in a circle around me, carving through all the drones on the platform as I ran towards the Kingserax, still being distracted by Ritsu. She was evading all the swipes of its blades and its gunfire so effectively that it had all four arms focused on her. I sprang...
You know, I guess technically you wouldn't have to take out the guns. You just have to take out these cables, which may or may not be feeding it. So if you take those out, yeah, you would technically take out the guns.
From one platform to the next, and saw Toshiko sprinting along the ground, ready to get onto the opposite side of the creature from me. The Kingserax didn't take its focus off Ritsu, as Toshiko and I ran past. I instantly saw the spot where she and Chip had already done significant damage to the creature's tail. With as much force as I could, I hurled Toshiko and my blades right at it. They slashed through and sent sparks bursting out. Toshiko had gotten just to its other side, took control of all the blades as they reached her, and sent them right back through the tail towards me with all her strength. The creature clearly felt it, charging a beam in its mouth and turning its head. Thankfully, Ritsu leapt right back in front of its mouth and fired a dozen bolts from her Tekigami claw into its throat. It was forced to close its mouth as I sent our blades back through its tail again. It was nearly sawn off. Toshiko took control and sent the blades in one more time. Hoping that last strike would be enough, I leapt down just below the end of its tail. I remembered from the thumper that these things could still thump even after they were severed. Our last blade slashed through and the tail dropped. I caught the end of it and admittedly had to use a bit of telekinesis on top of my own physical strength to leap off the ground holding the tail. I swung it up over my head and slammed it down onto the Kingserax's head. The strike bumped it down, but then the following pulse smashed the creature's steel skull straight into the dirt. The tail quickly started to deteriorate after that, but as I released it and fell towards the front of the creature, I could quickly see that I'd made a hole in the top of its head. Ritsu noticed that pretty quickly too, and leapt onto it. She shoved her metal arm right into the hole and started clawing and firing inside it. The Kingserax quickly got up and swiped both its blades towards her.
Go for the brain!
Chip sprang onto one arm, wrapping his own arms and his legs around opposite ends of its elbow, holding it tight so it couldn't bend enough to reach her.
Oh, wow. A bit of a jump, though. Hey, man, it's okay. Sometimes recordings just happen by accident.
Toshiko and I took mutual control of our blades and got all of them pressed against its other arm, pulling them back. Both our strength combined was enough to keep its arm from swinging at Ritsu, as she kept tearing and blasting into its head. Then, with astounding agility, the creature crouched down and leapt straight up into the air. Chip dropped away from it, and Toshiko and my blades got left behind as it shot upward. I was shocked how high something that big could jump. It swung its head up and smashed Ritsu into the top of the cave. "Mom!" Toshiko instinctively yelled. General Ritsu, are you okay?" The creature started falling back towards the ground. Ritsu had fallen off its head and was spinning through the air next to it, but did say, "I'm alright." Leaving my blades behind, I leapt into her path and caught the general, landing with her on an empty
Well, that does at least prove one thing. Even with you knowing about your past life, you do still love your mother.
platform. She was a bit scraped up, but gave me a thankful nod, and we both quickly turned back to the creature, who was stumbling away from us, but turning back quickly. We'd done a lot of damage, but it wasn't finished yet. Its mouth sparked and glitched as it charged up another beam and aimed towards the platform Ritsu and I were on. It fired bullets from its other arms towards Chip and Toshiko, keeping them both on their toes. There was a good reason this thing had been the last line of defense, but just because it could handle 4 Slayers didn't mean it could take our whole squad. Just as it was about to spit a beam at Ritsu and me, a figure flung over its head from behind and kicked his blade straight down into the Kingserax's skull. Its mouth slammed shut, but the beam still went off, making its own jaw explode. Roku flipped off the creature's head, moving towards the ground, as Akuma soared over it next, spotting the hole in its head and sending all her little dagger blades inside it. The creature thrashed its head and slammed it into a wall, as if trying to shake out the blades, but it was no use. It was still firing its guns, now in random directions. As it did, Quinn sprang in like a shot and double-kicked one of its own guns towards its leg. It shot itself, and one of its knees buckled beneath it. Hondia and Shuma both got underneath it and sprang up together. They tackled up on the opposite side to the downed leg, making it fall right over onto its side. It quickly scrambled to try and get up, but before it could, Captain Hekima darted along the ground next to it, thrust back his arm and blades, then punched right into the hole in its head with all his strength. His blades pierced right through the top and tore through the bottom of its tattered jaw, coming out the other side with a bunch of its mechanical brain, along with his weapon. With one last glitching shriek, the Kingserax's body went limp and began to deteriorate. That fight felt like
great work, guys!
Such an epic thing to be a part of, and it felt good seeing proof that no matter how tough of a Kingserax got sent after us, they were no match for the full Slayer squadron.
The king has fallen. Now, you better hurry for those ships before they take off.
Unfortunately, just after the Kingserax was slain, there was a bright burst of light that flashed through the caves from beyond the ledge. I leapt back over to it and saw one of the ships had vanished, and the other 3 were hovering up off the ground. The second flash of light nearly blinded me, and I could barely see that the second ship was gone before another flash happened, then another. The rest of the squad was running up next to me as I said, "The ships have all vanished." Roku smirked. More like they fled with their mechanical tails tucked between their legs. Hekima looked down at the now empty lower cavern and nodded slightly. "Roku's right. Even if we didn't slay everything down there, we've done serious damage today, and so far, suffered no casualties. Fan out.
That's a good
we have
thing.
no reports of lower tunnels than this, but let's investigate. If not, we regroup with the other squads and wipe out everything that's left in this." "Negative. You all need to get out of there now." Chief of Staff Buru surprisingly spoke through all our comms. "You've all done well indeed, but those ships have just reappeared in the exosphere straight above the caves. Our footage suggests they're taking aim on your location now."
Oh, that's what the cameras look like. Okay.
"They likely mean to detonate their own hovel and bury you all alongside the rest of their own. You are victorious today, soldiers, but move fast to keep this day one worth celebrating."
Okay, gotta get the hell out.
affirmed the order, but I was immediately skeptical of complying. Bombing this place would be a convenient way to bury any proof of who put the Kingserax here in the first place.
That is true.
On top of that, I immediately thought back to something Dr. Shotsia had said about Shijikaburu and the global commission he was a part of. If her theory was correct that humans, possibly that group, were behind the Kingserax in order to force humanity's technology to advance quickly through war, then the next thing they'd do was make sure the Kingserax attacked from space. That would force funding to be pumped into space combat-ready ships. It was looking like she'd hit the nail on the head, and Buru had just gotten, or maybe created, all the proof he needed to move into the next phase of his plan. I was already hesitant to flee as the rest of the squad started moving out, but then felt something pulling on my cheek. It wasn't anything physical, but almost seemed like a slight telekinetic grip tugging at me to turn. I looked back down the cavern where the ships had been, and wasn't sure what I was meant to be looking at. Was Faye down there, trying to point me towards something?
Possibly.
I knew I didn't have an excuse to give the others, but I leapt down into the hole, saying, "I'll follow soon. I think I see something." That was a lie that I shouldn't have told because immediately Hekima replied, "What is it, Adachi? I hoped I'd
Not
know
sure.
soon." "I'm not sure, but I'm gonna
I
find
called it.
out." "Negative," Buru snarled. "Move out at once. 3 missiles have just been fired from the enemy ships. At their current speed, they will reach the caves in under 8 minutes. You must move out now." 8 minutes was barely enough time to escape as it was.
We can do it.
Still, I ignored the chief as I noticed that the back wall of this cave was astoundingly flat. Every other cave wall was rough
Artificial flat, huh?
and jagged. This one might as well have been laminated. I ran straight for it and noticed dirt and dust on the ground ahead of me, right next to the wall, being wiped away by an invisible hand. "Private Adachi," General Ritsu hissed. "You have been given a direct order by the Chief of Staff."
Yeah, and currently, screw that order, there's something here!
I should have realized I'd be sprinting farther into Ritsu's bad side for ignoring Buru, but I didn't have time to care. I was too busy staring down at what was clearly Kingserax tech built into the ground right next to the wall. The invisible hand had stopped wiping dirt away, but there was also much more to be uncovered. I glanced down at my busted camera, pretty confident the mic was dead too, as I muttered, "Move well back from the wall, Faye." I gave her a couple seconds, then flung my blades in both directions, face first, so they fanned the ground and sent all the dust and debris away from the metal tech lining the entire flat face of the cave wall.
Nice.
It was nearly 300 feet wide, and looking up, I could see there was that same sort of tech lining the ceiling right above it. I heard a figure land down in the cavern behind me. I turned to see it was Toshiko. That was sure to prompt more anger from Ritsu. Thankfully, I felt another telekinetic tug on my face to turn.
Okay.
I ran to the far end of the flat wall as I said, "There's something built into this wall. It's definitely Kingserax tech, not the shoddy-looking infrastructure like the platforms and beams here." I glanced back and saw Chip, Hekima, and Ritsu were all coming down into the lower cave. I almost wanted to encourage them all to leave while I investigated. I didn't want to be responsible for all of them being buried alive if the missiles got to us before I figured out what this was. Thankfully, I reached the end of the tech and saw there was a blue handle built into the ground that looked like it was meant to be gripped. I reached down and grabbed it, then felt my hand being guided. I learned later that Faye was on the opposite end doing exactly what I was doing. You needed 2 people acting in tandem to activate this thing. I pressed my hand down, shoving the handle farther into the ground, then spun my hand 180 degrees and pulled back up. The second I did that, the entire wall began to glow blue. Spreading out from the middle, an image came into view. It looked like a massive hallway inside a futuristic windowless building. The architecture heavily resembled that of the outside of the Kingserax ships. I soon realized it wasn't just an image. We'd opened a portal.
Ooh.
I was about to cheer excitedly and tell everyone to move in when a very unexpected and irritating order came through the comms. "General Ritsu, Slayer Squadron," Shichikaburu said furiously. "Restrain and arrest Private Adachi. He is a Kingsidian spy."
What?
I whipped around. "What?"
Oh, come
Ritsu
on!
and Hekima seemed just as confused. Even Ritsu didn't immediately comply. "Chief of Staff, what evidence do you have of this?"
Yeah, literally, man. You got anything to say about that? I'm human, I found something, and now that I found something, your ass wants to put me behind bars before I can explore this more. Explanation?
He responded, and I could hear the faint flickers of desperation in his voice. "Footage has just been brought to my attention of Private Adachi using telekinetic abilities during the very siege you have just undertaken. It may not be public knowledge, but that is a common ability of those treacherous Kingsidian invaders. He is either one of them in disguise or has been given abilities by them. Either way, he is very likely about to lure you all into a trap.
Dude!
Detain him for interrogation and get out of those caves now while it is still possible." The rest of the squad was coming down into the lower cave, hearing the same bizarre order and news. I looked at General Ritsu, and she just seemed stunned and confused. "I'm not a spy. I just found us not only a faster way out, but probably a portal into the Kingserax's real base. There's no way this cave system was their base. It's basically just a hole in the ground with some platforms thrown around. There
Exactly. It's literally just like a forward base of operation.
Any tech for them to build weapons or anything." Buru retorted, "There is certainly an ambush waiting inside. Remember that Private Adachi is the one who brought an active Kingserax bomb back into our base and allowed it to go off."
Hey.
"I was told to bring it back. It wasn't my choice to keep it on site at the compound. That was your call."
Exactly.
He ignored my response and said, Do not let Adachi flee back to his own kind, and do not fall for his tricks. General Yamada, detain him now. That is a direct order.
Yamada, please, tell your boss to go himself.
She hesitated, but didn't ignore her superior.
Damn
She
it.
raised her claw and aimed her blaster at me. Private Adachi, we will sort this ordeal out back at the base. Come quickly and quietly. Back off, General, Toshiko said as she stepped in front of me. Buru is the one being suspicious here, not Kaio. Do not disrespect the Chief of Staff, Toshiko.
Screw that
Ritsu
Chief of
snarled.
Staff.
Chip stepped in front of me next to Toshiko. I'm gonna have to second the opinion of the younger Ms. Yamada here. Kaio might have just found us a finish line to this war. Buru shrieked even more furiously. Arrest all 3 of these detractors immediately and do not enter that portal.
Into
Ritsu
the portal.
took a step towards
Go.
us. I'm sorry, an order is an order. Toshiko's fists
You have free will, damn it!
were so firmly clenched, I thought she might shatter her gauntlet. We don't have time for this. Toshiko suddenly shoved me backwards, then sprang forward like lightning. I stumbled off my feet, falling through the portal and landing on smooth metal ground. It looked like Toshiko was attacking her mom. I only learned later what she was actually doing. As she jumped forward, she slashed her smallest blade fragment through her own mic and camera, knowing her mom's had already been busted. She then left her blades behind and tackled General Ritsu away from the others. She ripped off her helmet and tore out her mom's earpiece, tossing them away to ensure nobody was listening through the comms.
Oh, right.
And whispered to
Earpiece.
Ritsu.
Okay.
If you care
For a
about
second, I thought she went for the chip in the brain, but thankfully, no, I was mistaken.
me at all, please believe me, Mom. You can't just trust everything the Chief of Staff says. Talk to Dr. Shatsuya. Tell her you want to know the truth about Shijikaburu. You'll see why he doesn't deserve your loyalty. Toshiko said she couldn't read her mom's expression in response, but also knew she didn't have time to wait around and see if her mom was listening to her. Toshiko hurled her mom straight up into the air so she couldn't get fast footing to come after Toshiko, then sprinted back towards the portal, yelling, "Anyone who wants to help us really end this, follow me." She sprinted past everyone and dove into the portal.
I know
Chip
Chip's
came
coming.
through alongside her. I moved farther into the hallway, away from the other uncertain soldiers. My comms started cutting out the farther I moved into the room, but I heard Buru yelling, "Anyone else who goes inside that portal will be considered a traitor to humankind. Fall back now."
Oh,
General
God, I hate that
Ritsu
guy.
had landed back on the ground, but quickly sprang up towards the top of the cave, out of sight. Ondia, Roku, Shuma, and Akuma all followed suit, leaving just Quinn and Hekima. They both seemed almost paralyzed. That is until Quinn said, "If this is an ambush and I die, somebody better release my unfinished manhwa for me." She sprinted in through the portal, and Hekima just followed behind her.
Yes!
I thought he was coming to stop her at first, but he ran right on through the portal, coming up to the rest of us. He slowed as he got close to me.
We got 5
I
people.
saw you use that telekinesis, Adachi, but you did use it to save me. Tell me you're not a Cusidian. I'm not, but I technically used to...
So, have you ever heard of a Starseed? You know, that would be like the perfect line to actually end the song. It's like, tell me you're not a Cusidian. So, have you ever heard of a Starseed? Then the next episode begins with the explanation already being done, and it's like, so, you were a Cusidian, but you chose to die and be reborn as a human. You were what's known as a Superite. You chose to die and be reborn as a human. Chip is a lizard man who is disguised as a human. And that is right. Yep, that is right. And it's like, what about the rest of us? Possible.
But I swear on my life, all I want to do is end this war and save humanity. I don't want anyone else to die.
No bloodshed.
As I said that, I noticed Hekima's face twitch. I didn't know what it meant, but he clenched his teeth and nodded. You've got more explaining to do, but let's make sure we're not in more trouble here. Quinn then marched up next to me. I'm sorry, did you just say you used to be a Cusidian? I feel like that's a big enough statement for us to take a pause and get an explanation now.
Hey!
That was totally fair, but it would have to wait. I could hear multiple footsteps approaching from around the corner of a curved forked tunnel ahead. Wherever we were, we definitely weren't out of trouble yet.
Oh yeah. I kind of called the ending. Not 1-to-1, but I was pretty damn close. Alright. next time we see more.
If you're enjoying this series from me and you're not watching other long-form stories I'm telling, like the Trismegistus Academy, you might want to check out that series, which may or may not have actually had an appearance from Yorick in it in the most recent episode, as one of the characters
Yes, it did! Well, I checked it out!
From that story was reincarnated from Kaio's world into that other story. Or you might like Vigilance, which tone-wise has some similar themes revolving through it, around personal development and stuff like that. And it's getting a spin-off sequel, probably once I'm finished Starseed Psyche.
The Book of
Besides
Fire
that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note. And the thought I want to leave people with today is something I read this week about a circuit in your brain called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex.
Oh, that
It's
is
a circuit
tricky.
in your brain that controls how fast you bounce back and recover from setbacks and failure. And surprise, surprise, it literally gets rewired to become stronger every single time you consciously choose, after a setback or failure, to get up and keep going, after whatever it is you're trying
It's like a mental spring.
to achieve. Meaning the more times you do that, the easier it's going to get, because that circuit is getting stronger and stronger. I hope that's inspiring information. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Monday, which is going to be whatever SCP video was voted on by my subscribers. I'll see you there. Goodbye.
Alright. Alright everyone, that's going to be the end of today's video, and I hope you all enjoyed. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original will be in the description below, and I'll see all of y'all next time when we flick back on. Until then, this is Fox, signing out. Peace.